Okay, hello. I'm back. Okay, so applying my other concepts to this now. Um, when I was looking at the trees and I was seeing that how, when you're in the forest and you're looking at how, or at least I look at how all the plants interact together and how the entire ecosystem relies on itself and supplies more life to everything about it. I mean, even in the death, there is life. And it's amazing. And I don't know, a lot of you may or may not be religious people. And religious is kind of a hard word for me because I define it a lot differently than people do. I believe in God. That's pretty much how it goes. I believe in not just any God, I believe in the God. And I believe in Jesus, and I believe he was our Savior. I don't really like how religion has all these very predisposed things to it. That when you say that you're religious, you are all of a sudden in a class of people. I mean, I do like that. Sometimes I do like that because I definitely like to be, if I was per se to be, have to be called one thing or another thing, I'd rather be called religious than non-religious. But at the same time, to me, it's just that word does not accompany what I feel inside, and it does not supply any of the definitions that I feel is true um, within me, because it's just defineless. But anyways, that's kind of beside the point. The main point of that is that when I'm out in the wild, I really feel God's love, and I feel how he's making things grow and how he really provides this overwhelming love to everything. And I think about things like what, the theories are that we're taught as kids in public schools, and what we're taught through social media and through mainstream media, newspapers, and people around us, and malls and cities and the TV and cell phones and microwaves, and just all this stuff, everything around us is just teaching us these things to follow, this way of life that we only know and our parents have taught us and our parents' parents have taught them. And some of these things are great and they're traditions and they're amazing things like like Christmas traditions, or how you all might sit down and watch a certain movie or something like that. Those things are great, but the things that just really brainwash you into believing certain things that aren't necessarily the true, honest thing. It's just kind of a distraction type of situation. And I think that a lot of people, and I mean, this is kind of where my religion is going to play into my opinion. And if you aren't religious, then fine, don't listen to this. But I think that there are some magnificent theories out there about how the world has come to be and how it works. And there's this one theory about how the Earth is expanding. Um, and basically, the Earth is recycling itself, and on top of that, we somehow, as humans in this theory, are creating more things to make the world expand. Um, Part of the theory, I guess, and this is funny because when I was in the forest, I came up with this thought without ever reading a word of it or hearing a word of it, but just thinking about things and how things work. And I thought, wow, the farther you go into the forest, the farther you go into the forest, things get bigger. Things get more intimidating. There's more of everything. The wildlife grows. Both in size and amount, the wildlife grows. Pretty soon, you're tromping around these ferns that are bigger than you, and you are the bottom feeder because these trees are so tall you couldn't even see the tops of them. You can be in places where you'll see, you know that there are wild animals around you that are very fierce, that might be even watching you. Like jaguars, or in certain places, tigers, or bears. In Alaska was a big one, were the bears, or the wolves too. Those are huge too. And you just know, like, there's this overwhelming humblingness to it because you're just like not your human being that's been conditioned to a concrete world. and a different type of jungle. And as you go in, and even though I've lived in the forest for a long time, I'm still a human being that was raised for a number of years outside of the forest, and I have a brain because of all the social media. Even though I have an alternative brain, I'm also definitely not like the Native Americans were. I'm not in touch with the forest as much as they were, and it intimidates me. And you're just humbled by it. And the further you go in, the further you go in. And the further you go in, you end up in these rainforests. And it's very wet, as you know, in the rainforests. And they might be layered, but the layers end up at some point, if you're in a rainforest, the area around it the land will end up scooping kind of down. And you'll notice these ridges and waterfalls, all the water pools. And again, this is all things I was thinking about on my last hike. I wasn't really getting it from, any sources. I was just pulling up all the rainforests that I've studied and thinking about the landscape around us and how, because we were in a rainforest, and thinking about how the land, you had to be very careful, especially where we were because it wasn't maintained. You had to be careful where you walked because you couldn't really see the ground. And there was ledges because we were also by the ocean that could dip down, and you could step on something and literally your weight alone, even if it's just 100 pounds, could just totally corrupt that whole area, and you could just collapse and fall into a pit, which who knows how long of a pit that would be, or how far you would end up dropping down. You could drop down to your death, it's intimidating. And everything is so wet. And the further you go in, the wetter it gets because it's like a drain. And I started to wonder about those giant caves that you hear about. Those, not those caves. What are they called? Those holes in the earth that just people go exploring and they propel down. And they just made a movie called is it Sanctum, where they propelled down in one. Well, those things are almost always in the middle of rainforests. And if you think about it, it's like the world's drain. Because the further out you get from the forest, the more concrete you get, and you get deserts and stuff like that beyond that. And it all drains down, and there might be hills and mountains in the rainforest, but overall the water will go around and drain, and it will drip into these deep caverns that continue to erode and go deeper and deeper and deeper, and people are not able to explore to the depths that these caves actually do end up going down to. Some of them drain off into the ocean. Some of them have other pathways that don't just drain off into the ocean, but drain deeper into the Earth's core. Eventually I was thinking that this water, now this is kind of maybe the outlandish thing that I was thinking of, but I just said this to my fiance when we were walking. I said, well, maybe that's how the water's recycled. Maybe, the clouds, you got the water evaporating into the sky to form these clouds, and the clouds are moving over the earth, and so you're not, even when it rains, you're not getting the rain that evaporated in your area because the clouds are moving. So the exchange of water, you could be getting water from across the world eventually. But this world will rain down on you, and some of this water will go into the rainforests. And this will eventually make its way into these caves and into these cracks and go down and maybe make its way to the hot center of the earth where the water then is purified again just by the boiling temperatures of it. And eventually, when it gets to a certain point of heat, it might then evaporate back out or come back out of the earth and evaporate back into us and be able to be taken back up or be let out into the oceans or however it may be. Maybe, a lot of those caves do come into or end up having spouts that go into the ocean eventually. So maybe it's that when the water goes down the holes that go deeper than that to the core and heat up, it will steam up and maybe drip onto into the path of the ocean, and then be let out into our ocean to help purify those waters. I'm not sure how that works because I haven't really gotten everything else up until the point of the boiling of the water to repurify it. I know is true, but this part about the water being boiled and how it would come out again, I'm not sure of. But I was thinking, it's kind of depressing what I was talking about in my first video about how it's hard to get good water because it takes on its characteristics. But that can get pretty depressing if you think about the water we have now in this earth is the same water we've always had, and we never gain any more water. However, really, it's like there's this amazing purification process that God made so that we would be safe with the water we have and that the water will still remain pure for us no matter how polluted our world gets, unless they take out all the rainforests and clog up those holes with trash, which I'm pretty sure, even though our planet's pretty dang bad right now, we are not anywhere close to that point yet. So it's kind of a relief. I think it's kind of a cool concept. The bigger concept, I suppose, that people have gone out to say, because after I told my man about this, he was telling me, he was saying, oh, geez, that sounds like the expanding Earth theory. And I was like, what are you talking about? I just came up with that. And he was like, yeah, have you ever read about it? It's kind of a crazy thing, and people look at you crazy if you think it's true. But basically, and then he explained it to me, and it was like what I had discovered on my own, just by being out in the forest. But the thing is in that theory, the theory is that the water goes down and it boils and it expands, and it makes the world expand. And eventually, in this theory, that's why all the continents separated in that theory, and that's why the world will eventually explode. Again, because I believe in the Bible and because I am a person of faith, I don't really honestly believe that's the case. I don't think the world is going to explode, and I don't know how I feel about the whole theory on the continents separating, or if there ever were just one continent, or if there are a bunch of continents. I don't know enough about geology and how the world works in order to make a conclusion about that, and I don't base my major conclusions about that stuff on textbooks. I base it on me being out in nature and knowing the information I know, like water takes on its characteristics of what it's around it, or what is around it, to base what I end up believing, in faith, of course, plays a huge role in it. But something I also came to realize when I was out there thinking about this water process was that people get so amazed when they make these big discoveries about, like even the Big Bang Theory or something, just all the different theories about all the stuff that happens. And I think, again, this is probably really controversial, but I think the problem might be that people try and look at the parts of the animal, or whatever you may call it, instead of the whole. People get so amazed that that's a cat tail and how it works and how it provides balance and everything about it and how its whole process works. Or people get so enwrapped in the whole process of how atoms can combine and make another atom, or how the process of light and how and light speed, or the stars and how the stars work, or how the revolution of the world spins, or how this water process, the recycling process, and they get just so infatuated with its millions of amazing things that are built in right there to make it perfect and work perfectly for us to survive, greater than anything that any human could ever make. And they just get so engorged in that thought that they say that the thought itself, that item, is the only thing there is. And they can't expand their brains past that point. They can't expand their brains to thinking that this huge idea is a small idea of the huge picture. It's like the world is sitting right here for God, and it's His heart, and it revolves and recycles itself, and it's His heart, and He loves it and He cares for it. But it's only a small part. I mean, it's a huge part of Him. I mean, that's what He says. But in retrospect, it's just like, part of the picture, not the whole thing. You can't say biology is amazing, science is amazing because of these things. It's not science that created science. I think that all the credit needs to go to God. And that's just the conclusions I always come to. Because again, I'm a God-fearing and loving person. And I believe that the knowledge that we get doesn't come from the media. The true knowledge that we get, the true genius moments we get, they don't come from the media. They come from our own brains that are designed by God to think and make these conclusions and come across these discoveries like the one I made that day. It didn't come from a textbook. It came from God. Anyway, I gotta stop this video because it might not upload. It might be too long now. I hope that somebody out there, appreciates this video. And if you have to add a comment, I would love to see some positive comments, some added feedback, about the processes. Enlighten me, give me some more ideas to have in my head from your own ideas and explain them where you got them is very important to me because, again, I don't really go off of a lot of textbook type things. I go about some things though, like the histories of things are a little bit less to me important than say the molecules of water, like the chemistry compounds of water are more important, I suppose, just because that's how I can relate things. I also am really good with like numbers and stuff, but yeah, I just really want to hear what you guys have to say. So hope I didn't offend anybody, and have a good New Year.